myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers. You better wake up for the pay stub, or you'll pay up. Don't make love to the game, bruh, fuck the game up. Change up, rearrange stuff to your greatness. Famous for the way up, play the game, bruh.
Never stop, I'll get it if I want it. Gotta make to myself a promise. I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top, yeah.
You know I'm always honest, there ain't no way I'll ever stop it.
I won't quit, keep going till I got it. I won't give up till I'm on top,
I'm always flirting with pain, she like to hurt me and maim. I'm always working to change, but she's still lurking the same. I keep on building a dynasty while the haters be trying me. But they hate from inside, you see, hate themselves in society. So I let them speak quietly while my actions speak wider. See, they be hiding in privacy with the screen. Oh, the irony to hate someone who's trying to be whatever they would like to be. We all feel the anxiety, we make our own rivalries. Yo, so where is all the positivity? I feel like we all just hate on everything, it's killing me. Thoughts build quick, causing different possibilities. Negative thoughts will cause different disabilities. So do better, work hard under pressure. If you got no time, work smarter than ever. Don't ever let them tell you that you can't never say never. And turn your mind into the truest to go-getters.
Good morning, everybody. My name is 12 Gauge. Welcome to my channel. I am your host. My channel is 12 Gauge Investigative. I'd like to start off this morning by wishing everybody a happy Saturday and hope that you guys are being productive on this Saturday morning or Saturday evening or Saturday night, wherever you are listening to this podcast. You know, the title says IDAHO4 and it has nothing behind it for a reason. Because this morning I'm going to talk about a lot of different things, and I really don't have a specific area where I want to start. I was sent a lot of documents yesterday about a certain personality trait that I'm going to do. So I'm going to show those, and I'm also going to talk about the Brady Giglio list and things like that. So I hope that you're up and ready and have your cup of coffee ready for this podcast. So let's get it going. Okay, here we go. This is the website that the Brady list that has been circulating all over YouTube came from. It is levelplayingfield.solutions, and it has the disclaimer at the very beginning. It says, we turn ideas into solutions by supporting government, justice, and law enforcement professionals in today's challenges with modern solutions. So it says Level Playing Field is the industry leader in providing secure, scale-able, cloud-based solutions for government, justice, and law enforcement professionals. All of our platforms are easily accessible in multiple languages via the internet, accessible device. At the end of the day, our goal is to provide a level playing field. So do you really think that a government agency would use that phrase at the end of the day? Who we serve? We serve the people, exclamation point. We exist to provide advanced technological solutions for everyday challenges with a scope that is on point and infinite in scale. We collaborate with many jurisdictions seeking common solutions that have the more specific requirements and regulations. We deliver software products and platforms that enable the organization and empower their constituents. So it says who we are. We are a group of technologists, industry professionals, and futurists to believe in improving the average citizen's experience while interacting with government, justice, and law enforcement. So here are some of the solutions: the Brady List, Resource Directory, Judicial Assessment, Judge Watch Network. So if you click on the Brady List, let's see what it says. So it goes all through there and gives you what the Brady List is. And of course, you can go to the state, and that's what you get. And obviously, there's bills. They even put a picture of it now. Before they didn't have a picture. So let me show you what this says. Prosecutor misconduct involving bias refers to when a prosecutor allows personal opinions, prejudices, or other factors of influence their decision making or behavior in a criminal case. This can include making decisions based on factors such as race, religion, or political beliefs, or falling to failing to disclose exculpatory evidence to the defense due to a personal bias against the defendant. Bias motivated prosecutor misconduct can be particularly damaging to a fair and just trial outcome, and is generally considered a violation of ethical and professional standards for prosecutions. Okay, well, let me ask you this right off the bat. What is the case? Okay, we already know all that. What is the case though? Because if you're accusing this individual of bias, that means he's going to be investigated if this has been obviously a document. See, it just says this is kind of like nobody wanted to show these, so let me see what it says. It says this is a text message, I guess. This is after I told you not to ask, but commendated or hurt the kid simply because he received some sick satisfaction of causing pain. After the awakening, any act, intentional or unintentional, that causes mental, emotional, or physical, social, or sexual anguish, there's that statement on what they put in the allegation. Supposedly, my slapping Solomon's hand, butt, or the way I would grab him or told him when he wouldn't go to sleep. He would always look at me, drop his jaw in shock, and his face would communicate, Daddy, why did you do that to me? Why would you hurt me, Daddy? What did I do, Daddy? Then he would cry. I now know those tears weren't because it hurt, but because I broke his trust and he thought I didn't want him. I see that face every day, at least 4 times a day, and it haunts me. I'm in the bathroom right now typing this, seeing his face, and I'm sobbing so much because I did that to my innocent baby. It makes me more sick because I justified it as discipline. Bull fucking shit. Raising my voice, yelling at Solo because he was exploring and checking out stuff. The face he would make was out of fear. My baby was afraid of me. And it would cause me. God, that's interrupting. That I might come and hurt him. I justified it as getting his attention and being firm. Or I'm showing my strong support for his mother, whom he is not listening to. Bull fucking shit. The constant lack of helping, I use that term with disdain. Not only was the abuse to Solomon because I wouldn't stay up making sure his diaper was changed when he needed it. See, my question in all this is, how is this criminal? This sounds like a family court type thing. Hello, everyone. I'm asking for your help in supporting my wife and son to begin a new life away from me. For the past 3 years, I've treated this beautiful, amazing treasure of a woman with apathy, gaslighting, ignoring her, treating her like physical commodity, and more. I've been a mental and emotional abuser to someone I love. To my 1 year old son, I have yelled at him, slapped his adorable little hands when he's playing with me, and spanked him when it wasn't warranted. I've emotionally and physically abused my own son. Just typing those words makes my stomach turn and my eyes well up in tears. How could I do this to them? How did I choose to be so terrible to them? My heart and mind says I love them. You can put my eyeballs on. I do love them, but I have not shown it at all. I have excused my behaviors with exhaustion, my custody battle stresses, and the results of that having to cut my family out of my life because of their behaviors, lots of excuses. Tomorrow we'll be asking my counselor to set me up on a program that focuses on abusers. To know I'm in that category is haunting, but I have to face the facts. As well as request to be examined for bipolar disorder, I'm starting to think I don't have ADHD, but that I truly have bipolar disorder. I will also be seeking from my counselor anger management classes. When I was diagnosed with ADHD, I asked for anger management diagnosis, and the report said I don't have it. But let's face it, someone who doesn't have it doesn't do what I've done, so I'm going to be reevaluated. All I ask is for your prayers. I get the help I need. I will always be looking for a second job so I can work to support Nikki and Solo while they're gone. See, it sounds like a family court deal. It doesn't really sound. It doesn't sound like. Let me show you the page. I thought I was showing you the page. Just like I get so messed up with this because um here it is, and I've been reading these documents right here. So you haven't been seeing this. That's what's going on. This says, I've always been honest with you from my perspective. I always thought I was 100% transparent with you, genuinely believing I would tell you everything I've always told you when I believed it was the truth. Anytime we talked about recollections I had about the last abuses, I thought was telling the truth because I was telling you what I remembered happening. The big challenge for me right now is learning to mentally separate reality from my perception of reality. I wonder myself how much of what I remember, in fact, distorted version of the facts because I was projected a certain emotion into the instance, and all I can remember was the emotions I had in the time, and memory is twisted by that emotion. This dude was talking to his mom about that last night, about the reality versus distortion. Um, Always thought I was being honest with you all the time because I do love you. That love is not distorted; it is grown. But now I know it is real. The love I have for you and our babies is undescribable. See, it sounds like she took him to court because he was abusing the child. And then he's talking about the sex they had. I mean, it's this doesn't sound like a criminal trial to me, guys. I mean, I don't know. He's talking about not making food for him because I was on one track mind, getting back to the couch so we could all watch a movie. It was abuse to you and that it was all on you. It wasn't equal parenting. You were having to constantly remind me. You haven't asked permission to nap or shower. See, it doesn't talk about any kind of physical abuse that I can see other than when he first started talking about hitting his son. See, there's some bruises, I guess. I mean, but what kind of criminal? I mean, this would not be like something that, in my opinion, that would be deeming of this person to have an investigation started on him regarding bias. The way people are presenting this, it's almost like he has been placed on this list and he's not. There's no such thing as a Brady list like this. This is like something that's on this website that you can come and put this person's information out there and present it and present your case, but it doesn't mean that this person is on a list. It means that at this time, this individual or this family has complained about Mr. Thompson due to these things that they see against him. Obviously, he was either prosecuting their case, being the prosecutor, and they they state that he was never contacted by the prosecutor, despite there being a ridiculous amount of evidence at our abuser's admissions. They included financial, emotional, stalking, protection order violations, and child abuse. So this mother, it sounds like this mother is the one who put this on here because it seems like the dad is still doing these things to the child, and these are the supporting evidence of what she's claiming. So I'm going to tell you, and I could be wrong, but I believe that in any Brady violation, there's an internal affairs investigation. And then the internal affairs delegates whether the person has committed a Brady violation or not. And they put the individual on the county roster that the county has. It is not put on there by a website like this. It doesn't happen like that. Okay? So it just really it's really interesting to me that all these people, they claim that they're so brilliant, but they run with this stuff like without doing any research. I just Googled this, okay? And Google could be wrong, but it said the steps of being on a Brady list. I put, what are the steps of being on a Brady violation list? It said the steps of being on a Brady list are law enforcement agency compiled list. They create Brady lists, also known as Brady Giglio list, to track police misconduct. Prosecutors use the list. So, Bill the prosecutor. Prosecutors use the list to determine if officers are qualified to testify. Prosecutors notify the defense. Brady information must be disclosed. The court decides what's admissible. So, you know, it's really interesting that individuals believe that a prosecutor can be put on a Brady violation list. As far as I know, it's officers and investigators. And I showed it last night, but I'll show it again today, what I showed last night, because it's interesting to really understand this. Because if you don't understand it, you're going to fall for just anything. And it's negligence on so many parts for people to be throwing people's names out there when they don't understand what it is that people are talking about. So here we go again. The Brady motion or the complaint is usually used for the prosecution in a criminal case to turn over any potentially exculpatory evidence, which means that the evidence that may be favorable for the accused. So in that on that website, it looked to see that the mother was complaining because of the exculpatory evidence. So what evidence was she looking to be disclosed if she had a restraining order on the father and was still stating that there was physical and emotional abuse being done? What exculpatory evidence was she looking for? And then we go, here's the definition of exculpatory evidence. It says exculpatory evidence is evidence favorable to the defendant in a criminal trial that exonerates or tends to exonerate the defendant of guilt. So, what if the mother was writing this complaint against the father? That's how I get it, because I don't see how the father would be writing this against the mother. It looks like all the screenshots and everything were evidence showing that the father was still harassing and stalking and all that stuff, and that there was marks on the child. So if she was looking for exculpatory evidence to be favorable to the father, if she's complaining of bias, it doesn't make sense. So here's the Brady material, okay? The police investigation flawed. That the police have other leads and information that are failed to follow up on or investigate. So I could see that, but that's not bias. Because if the prosecutor is going against the dad, he would be on the defense side, right? So what did the prosecutor, I guess she got mad because it sounds like the dad still got to get visitation or things like that. So it sounds like she got mad because obviously Mr. Thompson, if this did happen, did not show those screenshots or all that stuff. I mean, you can't just say this happened, because even though those screenshots were talking about, his understanding and how he treated his child, if you look further into context of all the stuff involved, you can't just say, okay, this is evidence toward whatever, just because you as the parent are saying that the spouse is treating your child badly. I mean, you have the pictures, I understand that, but what kind of investigation was done? Where's the official document to show culpability in this case? Because otherwise, anybody could just send screenshots of text messages and mal contacts and even pictures bruises that they could have gave themselves, or maybe, the child fell down or whatever. And, you could be convicted due to this. I'm not defending Mr. Thompson, but there has to be more to this. The statement of proof, the statement that another person committed the crime, whether law enforcement believes it or not. So this is what I believe that she's trying to show is she believed that her husband was beating on the child or emotionally or sexually abusing the child. And if she believed that her voice is not being heard, I mean, once again, we only have one side of the story. We don't know what the context of the investigation held. But I can tell you that page is bogus. Police credibility. Any information concerning law enforcement officers that placed their credibility in the issue. If she was going to do anything against anybody, it should have been against the investigating officer about their inability to do the investigation correctly or what kind of material they didn't bring out or things like that. Because as a prosecutor, you just can't bring out things that were not shown as evidence by the investigating officer. You can't bring out stuff just because you show it to the attorney does not mean that, okay, all of a sudden this is evidence. Because at the time of the crime, none of this was accessible. But I'm just speculating here because I didn't witness this crime. I wasn't aware of the crime or anything like that, but I'm just trying to put it into context. Police informant, that there are pending charges against the police informant. Well, there was no informant here. So here they are. Or if there's witness statements that are inconsistent descriptions by different witnesses of the criminal or the crime. So these are the Brady material that could be used to launch an investigation on anybody that is accused of not doing their job correctly. And they wouldn't place it on a website unless, the website is constructed to be kind of like a let's show the world that this person is not doing their job so that people can automatically not go to them or whatever. It would be like having a web page that monitors local restaurants. You get on there, you're able to put the restaurant name, what happened, your perception of it all the way down the line, and it's going to be put on this web page. But does that mean that the web page that the restaurant's going to get shut down because it's on a web page? No. There has to be investigators that investigate it, and you're not going to know the results of it. That's what so many people believe, that when investigations and things like that go down, that the public knows every little piece of evidence just because we have social media. That doesn't happen. Most of that information has to be asked for. The Freedom of Information Act. Okay, there's my synopsis on that. So you can take it or leave it. Continue to do your own research. But that's my impression right there. Now we're going to shift gears to something that a person sent me to discuss Mr. Koberger. And this person sent me this stuff on the ego depletion of his mental state right before the crimes. And I told them that I would present this the next time I did an Idaho video. So I'm holding true to what I said. Even though I kind of believe this, but I kind of don't, because honestly, I believe that the man just went in there and did what he did. There was really the only planning that took place was, scouting it, preparing for it, and an execution. This says, according to the letter, Koberger allegedly had an altercation with the professor he was assisting, John Snyder, on September 23rd. Professor allegedly emailed Koberger about the ways in which you had failed to meet your expectations as a TA thus far in the semester by October 24th. First, the outlet reports. These are some of the symptoms: depression, anxiety, anhedonia, lack of feelings, numbness, depersonalization, or derealization. As we've been told, Koberger's mood changed. It went from this to being more positive, more upbeat, more happy, not grading as harshly. So, if these are some of the symptoms of, his ego depleting, then after the murders, obviously he had that that rejuvenation, I guess. Circumstance inflated, unstable, or tentative beliefs in self superiority may be most prone to encountering threats and hint to causing violence. The mediating process may involve directing anger outward as a way of avoiding a downward revision of the self concept. Koberger wrote in May 2011 that he had depression, no interest in activity, constant thoughts of suicide, crazy thoughts, delusions of grandeur, anxiety, poor self image, poor social skills, no emotion. Well, that was 2011. This was 2022. I mean, we really don't know if he had depression or any of this stuff going on. But I could see how, if he had it at one point, it could possibly reactivate itself. Said University of Idaho murder suspect Brian Koberger was known for his rampant sexism among those he worked with and had a reputation for grading female students harsher than men, multiple sources told Cuomo. And that's been stated. Ringing or buzzing in your ears, known as tinnitus, feeling anxious, depressed, or irritable, having difficulty concentrating or feeling confused or like you have brain fog, or having trouble sleeping, insomnia. And I can get where a lot of these symptoms individuals would think, hey, that kind of talks about this at this point. It talked about him being up all night. It talked about him being irritable. It talked about him, just kind of being creepy, if you will. But there's a lot of different things that could cause all the things that are going on with him, or could have been going on with him. I'm sorry. See, we don't know any of this stuff was actually going on with him. We don't know if he had tinnitus, hyperacusis, head pressure, aches or migraines, fatigue, insomnia, because he was out riding around in the middle of the night. Does that really mean you have insomnia, or does that mean that you have stress going on with you that life is just kicking your ass? You know? We don't know that he had tremors or muscle twitching, vertigo, dizziness, or nausea, tingling sensations, or brain fog or poor concentration. And it keeps talking about this. Linda and Lindsay, IDAHO4. Dana and Ashley. Carmelia Spears explained that Koberger was initially in the Protective Services program at the Institute, where he sought to prepare for a career in law enforcement. However, she said that after 2 incidents, he was moved into another program where there are no female students. And there's a lot of this that that plays into roles of intense speculation. It really does. I got to read over some of this stuff and really look at it more thoroughly before I put any more of this stuff on here. Nina, thank you for sending it to me, and I'm not above saying that it's not good information. I just got to read over it before I present it because I've seen a lot of this stuff before, and it'd be better if you presented it or you were on panel to present it that way. Because I don't understand the Ashley Xana connection. I don't. So maybe one time you can come up on my panel and explain all this stuff because I really don't understand that connection. But it is some interesting information that I've heard you talk about it before. I'm just not really versed enough in it to present it, as your knowledge of it is probably greater than mine. So it'd be better if you presented it, and you're more than welcome to. I mean, it's some good stuff. I just don't understand it enough to present it, and I hope you understand that. I wanted to present this video that I found on YouTube, and it was talking about the correlation between Koberger and the Juten murders. And it's kind of insinuating that Brian was part of other kind of crimes, which it hasn't been released by law enforcement or anybody else that he actually has. So I'm not saying that he has, but as I was watching this, it seemed very, very interesting to me. So I will go ahead and share it with you guys.
Is going to blow your mind. I think I have evidence that connects Brian Koberger to the 2 Oregon murders, and I may have uncovered a 3rd murder in another state that he's connected to. I'll tell you what state that is later in the video, but first I have to cover some details on these 3 cases so I can lay the groundwork on how I arrived at that conclusion. Please be sure to subscribe if you like the video. So looking at our victims here, Sandra Ladd on the left would have been our first victim. She was attacked on June 13th, 2020. Her date of death is noted as June 14th of 2020, but we don't know if she was attacked late on the 13th or in the early morning hours of the 14th. Travis and Jamie Lynn were attacked on August 13th of 2021, and the Idaho students were attacked on November 13th of 2022. So we're looking at about 14 months in between each of these crimes. So looking at the location of these crimes, we can see here at marker A is where Brian lived in Pullman, Washington. The white dot here is Musco, Idaho. Near Portland at marker B would be where Sandra lived. And then down here at marker C near Salem is where Travis and Jamie Lynn lived. So I think the key thing here is the fact that these crimes occurred outside of the state that Brian lived in. I don't think there's really a significance in the fact that Portland is 6 hours away from where Brian lives. I don't think he was trying to create distance between himself and the crime. He was comfortable with committing this crime right in his backyard. The key here is it was across the state line. This one was across the state line. And Brian, being a criminology student, is very aware that when you commit crimes across state lines, it makes it much harder to figure out who committed them and if they're connected.
Well, this is true, but that's quite a distance to be going to commit a crime, don't you think? I mean, that's quite a distance, But one thing I do know that there's a lot of serial killers in the state of Washington, I've heard. And I don't know why that is, but it is what it is.
So here's a close-up view of where Sandra lived up on the top right in Camas, just outside of Portland. And then down here is where Travis and Jamie Lynn lived in Silverton. We're looking at about an hour and 15-minute drive between these two locations. So one could realistically get from Portland to Salem, I believe, in roughly an hour going down the highway. So this isn't necessarily a great distance to travel. So just keep that in mind later on when I talk about some of the reasons why I believe Brian is connected to this. So I want to lay down some groundwork from the Idaho case that we know about. There's some key details here that are critical for connecting these together that I want to share. So let me just take a look at the victims first. So we have Maddie, Kaylee, and Xana, the three girls, and then Ethan, the one male that was attacked. I want to point out here that Ethan is not a small guy. He's a pretty good sized person. He's pretty athletic. I've seen videos of him wakeboarding. I don't know if he played any sports in college, but if Ethan were in a hallway with somebody and he were fighting for his life, I do think Ethan would be a somewhat formidable person to deal with. Now, I do believe that Kaylee was the main target of the attack. I'm going to explain why in just a second. Let's look at how these crimes occurred. So the person snuck into the home between 3 and 4 in the morning while the students were asleep. They ambushed the students in their beds. Two other young women who were at the bottom level of the home were unharmed and were not aware of the crime. So if we look at the house here, I do believe that Brian was comfortable committing the crime in this location because of the privacy that it provided. When I was looking at the other cases, that is one of the connections that I made. All of the locations that these crimes occurred were in secluded private places to some extent, at least enough to where somebody couldn't just easily see Brian lurking nearby or even entering the home or committing the crimes. Now, I do believe Brian was watching the home when the students came in. I think he waited and until he was comfortable that everybody had gone to sleep. I do think he entered into the back door here and went upstairs where the girls were. It's my belief that he attacked Maddie first, and I think that she was dispatched very quickly. And I think in that process, Kaylee would have been stirred and potentially woken up. Now, this is where I think I'm going to share some information that has not been released yet. So just hang in there with me. So Kaylee's dad had made a statement early on in the news that the attack on these girls was, he used the words, a brutal attack. And he also mentioned that the girls had different injuries. And a lot of us thought at the time, before we knew who Brian was, that maybe it was a different weapon or it was more than one attacker. Now, what I believe Kaylee's dad was telling us is, in my opinion, I think after Maddie was dealt with, I believe that Brian beat Kaylee. I don't think that he just stabbed her. Now, if we look at Brian's profile, we know that when he was in high school, based off of people that knew him, he was always trying to fight people. He was into boxing. He was into kickboxing. Brian was a person who was holding inside a lot of rage and anger towards specific types of people. So when Kaylee's dad made that statement that this was was a brutal attack on these girls and that these injuries were so horrible and that they were attacked, or I'm sorry, that they had different injuries, that really stuck with me. And I really do believe that Kaylee was also beaten in addition to being stabbed. Now, I think from here, Brian intended to exit the home and come down to the second floor and attack Xana. Now, Ethan being in the home, I do think that Brian was aware Ethan was in the home, but he still went through with his plan. Now, I think as he was coming down the stairs, Ethan may have even been coming out to kind of investigate. And I believe that there was a confrontation that happened in the hallway there. Now, keep in mind, I did mention that Ethan is a bigger person. He is somewhat athletic. He would be a formidable person to just dispatch the way he was. Now, I do think there was a struggle, and I do think that that struggle did not last long at all. I think this was a very quick struggle, and I think Xana was awake and heard the struggle happening. I think she was petrified with fear. She may not have had her phone nearby, and I think she may have tried to hide during the struggle, just kind of as her reaction to what was happening, possibly between the bed and the wall. And I think that after the fight with Ethan, Brian entered her room and attacked her. Now, the fact that that fight with Ethan was so quick and quiet enough to where it didn't wake the other girls really stood out to me. When I kind of played this crime through in my head, initially I kind of thought of, maybe the killer attacked him from behind or something like that. But I'm going to show you something that I uncovered that's a really interesting clue here that I think supports my theory. And I think this helps develop a little more of a picture of Brian and what his MO is. And again, this is really key with connecting these other crimes. We have to understand what Brian's method of operation is so that we can see if there is a connection between what's happening. So I do think Brian was spooked after the crimes and he escaped as quickly as he could. And I do think that that video footage is him fleeing the scene. Okay, everybody, so here's where this gets really interesting. So you may recall in my past videos, I did some deep dives on Brian's Instagram account and some of the accounts that he was following. So I circled back and I just did a little more research. And the reason I did that is because every single account that I've looked into that Brian was following through that Instagram had some sort of logical connection to Brian. You'll recall in that first video I released where we followed one of those accounts and it led us to this playlist that said beats that you plan your crimes to. So that lined up perfectly with who Brian would be. It then took us further in and we found something called Goon Tape. Well, that Goon Tape was connected to another video that Brian had posted way back in October. So to me, that was a valid video that was uncovered that he posted in October. And then here we find one of these accounts leading us right to that exact promo video and that exact product. I don't think that's a coincidence. I do believe that some of these accounts are connected to Brian in one way or another. And I'm going to reveal later on what that connection is. So I looked into this account here, and this is really what kind of made everything click for me. I'm going to show you what happened. Now, I hope everybody can see my screen okay. I think the best way to do this is just to share my screen and let you kind of follow along with the investigating that I was doing. So again, this account is an account that Brian Koberger's account was following. So my curiosity here is, what is Brian interested in? Why would he be following this account? Where is this going to lead us? And then looking at the other accounts, I was starting to kind of see a pattern of things. And so, looking at each one as I went through, they just continued to be connected. So we just talked a little bit about Brian and his fighting ability, right? His interest in boxing, his interest in kickboxing when he was in high school. So sure enough, we come to this account, and what I'm doing here, I'm looking for a connection to
Like I was just saying with my mic muted, Brian being bullied over his weight when he was younger, I would say that there was a propensity of him being fixated on working out, continuing to stay in shape and not to gain that weight back. So him being members of, certain places where, you can get workout tape or whatever, or even tape used for different purposes, does not necessarily mean he was researching where to find things to hurt or kill somebody.
Brian. What could connect this account to Brian? So I clicked on this first little post and listen to this video and let me know what you think. And while you listen to this video, I want you to think of that encounter with Ethan at the same time.
You have to see training for what it is. Training is about skill development, not about winning or losing. You've got to understand that you don't need to win every battle. You only need to win the battles that count.
So what do you all think? That statement, you don't have to win every battle. You only have to win the battles that count.
To me, that means that, the important ones in your life that measure up progression are the ones that you need to bring your best at. I wouldn't necessarily see that a motivational video would be geared towards murdering someone, but I could be wrong.
Do you think that that could be something that Brian might like or, follow or watch that video for some reason? So I'm sure, a lot of people still don't believe me. So let's look a little bit further into this. So there is one post. So in my opinion, this account is somewhat of a burner account. I think that it's very easy to create accounts if you were maybe wanting to follow something or somebody, or maybe just look into a product or something that you're interested in, and maybe you created an account so that you could have more access into looking into something. So, this account was created and there's really just one post here, so I was kind of curious. I'm like, okay, what's the post? And you can see here, this post was November 11th, 2022, 2 days before the Idaho murders. And it says, and so it begins. Now, again, I'm not saying any of these accounts are Brian's, are involved in the crime or are responsible for the crime. This is just what I found when I followed the account that Brian.
Then why are you even talking about it if you don't believe it has anything to do with the crime or anything to do with Brian, other than he followed an account? Why would you even be talking about it? That's just what I don't understand, is when people are trying to go down these rabbit holes, or they're going down theories that they try to make up in their mind to make sense of what happened or what could have happened. Do you believe that he left digital footprints? Honestly, do you believe that he left digital footprints that would perpetuate his culpability of being the killer? And I don't want you to get it twisted. I'm not taking up for the man. I'm being right down the middle. I'm being objective here. I'm being the therapist at this moment. Because what I'm hearing is just a lot of one-sidedness. You understand that he used to fight, so therefore him fighting automatically beat up Kaylee because he was a fighter. Okay. Is there any evidence of that? I know we heard a lot of speculation about her injuries, but there's never been any proof of what actually happened to her other than the stabbings.
gear. He's worked as a security guard. He's interested in law enforcement. It would make sense that he has an interest in tactical gear, which we saw a lot of those accounts were related to. Okay. He likes knives. We see a lot of knife related accounts. He used a knife in the murder, so we know that's a fact. So he's following all these accounts.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Now you've actually said something that could possibly make sense. Occam's razor. He likes knives. They found knives at his residence in Pennsylvania. They confiscated those as evidence. Okay, that makes some sense there. But see, that's how these things go. You have to go with what the police have given you, not what you interpret as being another missing piece. Okay, I can dig that.
That are related to knives. He's following these accounts that are related to fighting and weapons. And just in general, he's following accounts that kind of center around crime and violence. Now, I'm going to tell you, we haven't even gotten into this evidence that I've uncovered. This is just a piece of it. There's a lot more to come. Stick with me. This is where it gets really, really good. Okay, so what do we know about Brian? Well, Brian has an interest in tactical gear, weapons. He wants to be a law enforcement officer. He's not afraid of confrontation. He likes fighting. He wants to fight. He follows a lot of fighting online.
Okay, so if we're gonna use Occam's razor, you see these individuals right here by Brian? They're all wearing tactical gear, bulletproof vests. They have handcuffs on them. They have radios. They have zip ties. They have batons. They have guns. They have all kinds of tactical gear all around them. If he wanted to be in law enforcement, that would make sense, wouldn't it? Why he would be looking at that stuff or interested in that stuff. The only thing that really sticks out is the knife part. But the other stuff, these guys are wearing the same thing. Does that mean they're killers? He's in criminal justice. Of course he's going to follow crime. Most people do that are in that degree program because you're trying to sharpen up your skills if you've never worked in it before.
Fighting tactics, looks for tips and videos. In my opinion, Brian trains for his crimes. Brian looks at his crimes and he's getting ready, and I think he conditions himself, and he that's why he has this obsession with these videos and looking for the fighting tips and things like that.
So see, I can go with that too because it's been stated that people thought that the police had something to do with it. So if he was training for it or if he was preparing for this, then it would make sense that he would look at it on a more police-based mentality. How to get in, how to get out, how to overcome noise reduction, all those things. That makes sense. You're spitting some facts. I can dig it, but some of the other stuff, not so much.
And there was something really interesting. A neighbor mentioned who lived next door to him in Pullman that she would often hear loud noises coming from his apartment, like somebody working on something or, really loud bangs and things like that. I believe it was Brian training. I think Brian was watching these videos, picking up tips and trying to become this efficient killer. And he was obsessed with winning fights. He wanted to fight people. A lot of anger in Brian. Now look at that picture. Brian's a big guy. He's not a small person. These are law enforcement officers standing next to him. So again, that attack on Ethan in the hallway, I believe, ended very quickly. I think in general, his attacks were extremely violent, extremely rage-filled attacks. But one of these key pieces or these key clues that I think ties these crimes together is I really believe that he beat his victims in addition to the stabbings.
Well, if you believe that, we will hopefully know that when it comes to the trial. They didn't mention any kind of beatings or any kind of facial issues such as blunt force trauma or any of that in the PCA. So I don't know where that came from, but also the rage part that really intrigues me when I hear people talk about that over and over and over. We don't know that it was rage filled. Just because we've heard that somebody who would inflict that much overkill on somebody does not mean necessarily that it was rage. It could have been the other part. It could have been excitement. It could have been pleasure. It could have been revenge. It could have been satisfaction, equalizing the field. Rage, in my opinion, would have meant that he would have decapitated or cut off limbs or things of that nature, where they would have just been totally unrecognizable. And I could be wrong. I haven't seen the, the knife wounds. Nobody has. So I could be totally wrong. But rage to me does not sound like somebody that's going to take their time and annihilate somebody and then move on to the next room. Rage would mean that you're going in there with such an anger propelled mindset that you're not going to be worried about anything but completing that. And if they were the target, why didn't he stop at that? If he was so angry, you would thought the exhaustion would have leveled him out by the end of the rage-filled, murder. That he would have stopped at those two, went out the slider, and never looked back. What would he have had rage on all four of them for? I could get the two. I could get your point on that. But the four, what did the other two do to him that would give him that kind of rage? What would Ethan have gave him that kind of rage over? He was a male, different genre. So if he was angry at women and didn't like women and was this and that and the other, he killed a male as well. So what kind of rage did he have at males? Or just specifically this one? Those are the questions that should be asked, in my opinion.
So let's talk about Sandra Ladd. So Sandra was 71 years old. She lived in Portland, and she was murdered in the middle of the night while she slept in her bed. We don't know what time for sure. I'm going to say roughly 1 a.m. So looking at the details here, she was found deceased in her home with stab wounds to her torso. She was presumably sleeping in the late hours of the 13th when somebody snuck into her home and stabbed her to death. Her crime is still unsolved. So again, she would have lived right here just outside of Portland. Now, I mentioned earlier, what was the connection between Brian and Portland? Well, what do we know about Brian again? Well, Brian is a vegan, right? And he's a hardcore vegan. He's not just, normal vegan. He's very OCD about his veganism. Okay. So the reason I believe Brian was in Portland, well, Portland is the vegan capital of the country. Portland is hands down the most vegan-friendly mid-sized city in the United States with
So he would make that long ass drive to Portland because it is the most vegan friendly mid sized city in the US. Let's go with that a minute. What are the odds that you would drive all that distance just to get some vegan food? Do you not believe that if he was as OCD about his food as been presented, There's no way that he was going into a restaurant to chance his food being contaminated. I'm more than certain that he cooked more at home than he went out anywhere. It sounds like he was a loner that wasn't really around a lot, but I could be wrong. But if you're that obsessive about something, you're not going to chance going to places where your food can be contaminated in one way or the other, or even that you don't know how it's being prepared. Because I'm just using logic here to think that if I was going to eat vegan food, I would have to be more than certain to see how it was being prepared. Like it said in the one interview, he wanted to make sure that the new skillet didn't touch any meat or any other products. How would he know that for certain? He wouldn't take that chance. I don't believe. I believe that he cooked more at home than he cooked anywhere. And the fact that you go, like, there's been people saying, well, Jack in the Box would have been vegan friendly. No, it wouldn't have. Come on, bro. Why are you putting the information that we have and trying to make that puzzle piece bigger than it needs to be? If he went to Portland, he went to Portland just to visit, to drive around, whatever. But you don't need to put substantiating opinion to make it more viable that your bias is against this gentleman. It doesn't make sense. And, I'm commenting on this guy's video. I don't even know who he is. So if you watch this, I'm not I'm not hating on you or shading you, but I'm just throwing stuff out there that is more logical in my head than what I'm listening to.
Believable food, various all vegan carts around the city, scattered around the city. Okay. I think Brian was visiting Portland because Portland is the vegan capital of the country. I think Brian was there when he was off of work.
So he went to get some vegan food. Then on the way back out of town, he committed a murder. That's what you're trying to make the connection as. He came to town to eat, and then he said, okay, on my way out of town, I'll commit a murder. Where can I commit a murder? As I'm driving home, I'm looking on both sides of the road. Where's the most secluded residence where it looks like there's just one vehicle in the driveway? There's no dogs, no cameras. The propensity to get in and out, commit the murder, and go about my business. So you're telling me, presumably, he would have been in his white Elantra, the 2015, right? So if he goes in and kills this woman, did he carry around a kill kit? Was he dressed up? Did he have his stuff in the trunk? Did he have it in the back seat? Did he have the propensity to come back in his car and get some blood droplets? How did he go in there with the knife? Did he leave any evidence? Was there any DNA found? Was there any? Because you're saying that the killer has never been found. So once they got Brian Koberger for this murder, they had his DNA. So if he was involved in this and there was any DNA in this crime that could link it to him, he would have been implicated for this murder as well. But that's just my belief. Let's see what happened.
Work or school when he had some free time. Brian might have even potentially been considering moving to Portland. Maybe he wanted to go check the city out. He had heard it's very vegan friendly. Okay. There's some belief that Brian may have encountered Xana and Maddie at the Mad Greek, which also serves a vegan menu.
There we go.
But I really was looking for this connection of Brian and Portland, and found this. And to me, this makes perfect sense that Brian would visit a place like Portland, Oregon. Okay, so that's just one piece here. There's more. So how would that connect to Sandra? Just the fact that he's in Portland, right? doesn't necessarily connect him to Sandra. Well, I believe Sandra was his first victim. And I think Brian, with his first victim, would have been a little more nervous and would have potentially targeted somebody who was weaker. Now, I don't know for sure. There could be another trait that triggers Brian regarding who he targets. There's one other thing here that I did uncover, but I don't know if there's maybe a something that they have a certain appearance, or maybe they say something, but not quite sure there. But I do believe that Sandra could have been targeted because she is vulnerable. Keep in mind, Brian likes to fight, but he likes to have the advantage when he fights. He likes to have the upper hand, and he likes to ambush. Now, after I made the connection between Brian and Portland, and why would Brian be interested in Portland? And again, it's the most vegan-friendly place that you can go. A lot of vegans have a hard time finding places where they have options, right? So it would not surprise me if Brian might have been considering a move to another location. Maybe he was even considering attending school there.
What day was this murder supposedly took place? Was it even during the time that Brian was in the area? You don't believe that they could have tracked his phone on that day to see where his phone went? Did it go to Portland area? Or did it stay around his home, around the Moscow area? Did he go down to Way Park? I mean, all this stuff would be available to be investigating this crime.
But that still didn't really bring me to Sandra, right? So how does that connect us to Sandra? Well, I want to ask everybody if you notice anything in this picture about Sandra. Well, I see here that she's wearing this fanny pack, and we have the wire coming out. Now, I think that Sandra may have been going through dialysis. And I think Sandra, living in Portland, the most vegan-friendly place in the country, could very well have been vegan herself. And at the very least, if she was going through dialysis, I think that she could have potentially been eating at a vegan restaurant, keeping her health in mind. What do y'all think about that? Still not enough? Still not enough evidence for you?
I think you're
Don't think Sandra could be vegan?
No, I think you're
Let's look
reaching.
a little bit closer. So, do dialysis patients have to control their diets? Yes, you may be on a special diet. You may not be able to eat everything you like. You may need to limit how much you drink, and your diet may vary according to the type of dialysis. So it's very feasible that she was keeping her health and her diet in mind while going through what I believe to be dialysis. Still not enough for you? So let's look a little bit further.
I've had family members that go through dialysis, and never have I seen them wear a fanny pack or have a portable dialysis thing, but once again, I could be wrong.
From the restaurant back to her house to kind of scope out and see if she would be a good target. And when Brian got to Sandra's house, he realized that it was a good target. You know why? Because it had the perfect layout that appeals to him. It had a private backyard, nobody can see in, surrounded by brush. Even has a sliding door that you can easily get in and out of. You can see the view there. Nobody could see. So this would be very easy for him to get into this house, and he would be private and protected, just like I mentioned earlier. What does everybody think? Could this be a connection to Sandra? I have more evidence, though, for the skeptics. So here we have a description of the crime. It was the night of August 13th. The couple was sleeping in their home, and they were attacked at 3 a.m. by an intruder with a knife. The intruder was never caught. Okay, just a reminder, up at the top here, 1900 41st Street would have been Sandra's address. Down here near Salem is Travis and Jamie Lynn's address. Now, looking at this crime, the husband, Travis was pronounced dead at his home, and his wife, thankfully, Jamie Lynn, survived after being stabbed 19 times. Okay, so here once again we have a crime of rage and passion. She survived with 19 stab wounds.
So what kind of passion would he have toward the wife? What kind of rage would he have toward these two individuals? What evidence do you have about that? In my mind, it would be more feasible to have a serial killer in the Portland area because these two crimes are closely connected than having somebody drive from a faraway distance to commit these two crimes and then drive back to where they live. You don't believe that if he would be investigated for anything else, they would have been able to see his vehicle? There would have been DNA. There would have been all kinds of stuff.
Okay. The intruder is said to have entered the Jewton residence at 3 a.m. and began stabbing the couple as they were in bed. This is exactly what my theory is that happened to Maddie and Kaylee. Still not enough evidence, everyone? Let me show you some more. So here we have Travis's obituary. Let's see if we can find out a little bit about Travis. So anyone who played the same table in games as Travis knew that he was a dominant presence, very good board game player, but was very humble and would offer to help. Travis loved all living things, so much so that he was completely vegan. I'm telling you, everybody, this is the connection here. Brian was visiting Portland because he was either considering moving there or he...
Read the next part. Don't just stop right there. It says, unable to stand the thought of harming an animal or living creature. So, theoretically, if you are taking that into context, living creature would be another human being, right? So, it just, you got to read the whole sentence, not just pick out the part that you want.
He was visiting the location just on his free time to check it out because it's the most vegan-friendly place you can go.
You've said that more than once. You're trying to make your point. We get it.
Survived this attack. And I think Travis saved her life. Now, I want to read a little bit more about the details here and share one more thing and let me know what you think about this. While we grieve Travis's loss and we wish for Jamie Lynn's health, we're concerned for the safety of our family, friends, and neighbors. Jamie faces a long road to physical and emotional recovery. Jamie Lynn is recovering from 2 fractured vertebrae, a fractured shoulder, a fractured skull, and nerve damage. She wasn't just stabbed, everybody. She was beaten. Jamie Lynn suffered 19 stab wounds, but she also suffered these.
You don't think they would have put blunt force trauma? You don't believe a knife can fracture a vertebrae or fracture a shoulder or a skull or commit nerve damage by cutting? Once again, I'm not throwing shade on you. I'm just watching this for the first time. And in reality, what would make this a crime of passion?
These additional injuries. Now, some might say that the knife could have caused the fractures, and I do think that is possible. Specifically, the fractured shoulder. It'd be very hard to fracture somebody's shoulder. Now, the fractured skull, not quite so sure about that. I do think that could have been more from blows from Brian. Okay, so the next thing I wanted to do here was try to validate my vegan theory on the vegan restaurant being connected to the victims and Brian. So I decided to just kind of start digging in here, and I did a little bit of a search of where these places are located. And again, it's Silverton, Oregon, where they live. So I decided to just do a quick, look up to see what kind of vegan friendly restaurants would be in Silverton, Oregon. And there were a couple that came up, but as I read through them, they didn't make sense. So if you read this one here, it says it serves meat, vegan options available. Now, Brian's not okay with that. Brian's not going to eat somewhere that serves meat if he has another option available. Now, he'll go to a restaurant that serves meat and order vegan if there's no other option. And I think that's the case with the Mad Greek. I think there's limited.
How do you know that, bro? How do you know that? How do you know that he'll go to another vegan restaurant that serves meat? How do you know that? You're saying this stuff as if you know it's personal knowledge of yours. And I'm not saying that you don't have personal knowledge, but explain your theory further. Don't just make statements that sound as definite factual information.
Options out there, and that's what brought him to that location. But I think if there were two vegan restaurants side by side, and one of them was meat and vegan, and the other one was straight up vegan, Brian would absolutely go to the straight up vegan restaurant. So when I saw this, I said, no, I don't think Brian's going to Silverton, Oregon to visit the Fin and Fowl Kitchen. So again, what I decided to do is, I kind of scrolled through and I saw once again, serves meat. This one also serves meat. And I said, nope, this one isn't, Silverton as well serves meat. Nope, here's another Silverton. Nope, serves meat. And it wasn't connecting for me. This wasn't good enough for me. I needed something more solid, to connect the vegan reason. Why would, Portland, I can see Portland has, 20 different restaurants down the street that he could go that are all straight vegan. But why was he in Silverton? Why would he have been all the way an hour south in Silverton? Well, and I looked again, vegan restaurants are all serving meat. Well, I just said, well, let me just check what's surrounding.
I had a vegan dish last night, and I believe, and I could be wrong because I haven't done research in veganism. So it was talking about the meat that was in this dish as being non processed, naturally. Let me pull out the package in the trash and I'll tell you. It says seasoned braised steak. It's made with all natural, non grass fed something. I don't know what this word is, but it was talking about it being, natural, organic to say the word, I guess. What if that was what Brian also looked into? I'm not gonna play any more of this. I've seen enough. But I thought that that was actually gonna present some factual stuff that nobody else had, but obviously it didn't. So I'm gonna end it with that. I hope you guys have an awesome Saturday. I hope you enjoyed this. It's not a jumping around and kind of like my other uploads are pretty basic because I'm doing them so quickly. This one I actually got to take some time in. And once again, Nina, I will explore your theory. And if you want to email me and see if you want to hop on my panel and you can explain it, I'd rather you do that than me to try to explain it for you. Once again, trying to be objective, not trying to point one way or the other. Hope you enjoyed this. Please be kind and hit the like button if you enjoyed it, or if you at least tolerated it, or hit the unlike. That way I can know what to do to make these things better. because I want them to be not necessarily boring. I can have 300 views and 14 likes. That just doesn't add up to me. So I want to get these things in the algorithm, and I don't even know if they're in the algorithm. So help your brother out. Anyways, can you dig it? Can you dig it? If you can't dig it, you need a bigger shovel. Maestro, cue that music.